Hi! So, before I start, I will say that, yes, we already did this video. You already saw it. But, by the new title of the video, or of this one, is I wanted to redo this. Now, I didn't want to get rid of the other one because I will probably mention it in an update video, kind of a little bit more, but I don't get rid of things that we already done unless I absolutely think it's terrible, and it's not. But the reason why I chose to do this is because this is a video, or this is a top 10 list that thought should really be explained. And how we reacted in the first one, I did not like. Of course, we were joking, everything, all that. But in kind of my own sense, I felt that by doing what we were doing, we were kind of insulting. We were insulting the characters that were on this list, because it might sound dumb, but I do hold the characters on this list to a high regard, because this is such a broad thing of, oh, here are some villains. Okay. Bad guys, villains, yeah, okay, we understand. But at the same time, to be considered a villain enough to be on someone's list does mean that there's something special about them. So, apart from how we reacted before, I wanted to really go back and explain everything, because I have a feeling that some things might have been off, or people might have taken things the wrong way, and I would rather have a chance to explain them than realize I never did, and it might cost me in the future. So, like I said before, this is a top 11 anime villains, because when I went through this list, I was actually I was having a hard time really figuring out who should be on the list, because how I put it together was how I should have explained this in the other one, but just because we're doing other things, I kind of forgot. But how I chose the villains were, what impact did they have on on society in the show, as well as in real life, and how people will portray the character. I also did it based off of what certain techniques did they use, and what exactly do they do in the show to be considered a villain. And there are a majority of the characters on this list are characters that I do like. I really do. There may be one or two of them that they aren't my favorite character, but in a villain standpoint, they're going to be one of the better ones. And I chose to do one villain per franchise, and because I knew that if I free roamed it and just let any villain go on the list, probably half of the characters might be from one show. and I did not want that. So I did one character per franchise, and of course, give me one. Oh, major spoilers ahead, because in order for me to explain it, I'm going to have to give background on the character and say exactly what they're doing. And before I go on, in the other react, there was a show that kinda did get spoiled for my sister, but she understood that it might have happened. So I want to try my best to not give as much away as I can. So of course you'll be able to see who the characters are, and I will definitely let you guys know if what I'm about to talk about is a major spoiler for the show itself. Then you will know that you should skip it. Now, if you already saw the first one, you know exactly who's on the list. But if this is your first time watching the video, I'm going to say this right off the bat. I have the villain from Erased on this list. And that show came out in the winter of this year, a phenomenal success, and you did not know until the very end who the villain was. So, if you would like to, if you don't want that spoiled for you, if I remember correctly, the villain is number 3 on the countdown, 3 or 4. So, actually, okay, sorry about that. I actually did check my slides to really go through and to actually pinpoint shows that the villains will be like a main component. And as of right now, slide number 4 is one that number 4 is for Erased. Slide number 2 is for Danganronpa, and the next slide, which I accidentally shown in the beginning because I overclicked, that one is also one that is kind of big to the plot line because it kind of reveals the overall like antagonist in the end, but it isn't as bad as Erased and Danganronpa, because once I explain the show, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. But without further ado, I will continue. But just one more time, if you do not want to know about a character, you just skip the slide. And 10, 4, and 2 are the ones that have the major ones for the end of the show. And it kind of wraps up the big question of who done it. So, just a big warning, but I will continue. Once it gets a move on. Okay, so Namikoshi from Rampo Kintai Game of the Place. This show came out in 2014. I think either the spring or the summer, and it is an underrated show. It is a horror mystery, and oh, I am so sorry. I meant Sly 11. Number 10 is completely fine. I meant Sly 11. I thought I was back doing a top 10. This top 11. Before I continue, if you do not want to hear anything about this, please skip. I am so sorry. Okay, so, to continue, the show is underappreciated since it is a horror mystery about a detective who he's like 17 years old and he doesn't go to school. He does the whole detective thing. And one day, two high schoolers or middle schoolers, they were caught up in a crime themselves, and one of them was fascinated by the whole lifestyle of being a detective, murder mysteries. So they help him out now, and like they're the assistants for the young detective, and they solve all these crimes that relate to one big antagonist called 20 Faces. And throughout the show, 20 Faces is basically a cover-up name that people will use to just say, like, oh, 20 Faces, they did this, they did that, and they basically use the name and everything about 20 Faces to commit their crimes. And as a result, by the end of the show, you find out that Namikoshi is basically the real 20 Faces. And how, through his formula, he was able to change the world. The reason why he's on this list is because he is, in my opinion, as a villain standpoint, he is one of the most intelligent ones, where what he is doing, he isn't trying to hurt anybody, in a sense. He was abused as a kid, didn't really have any friends, except for making friends with the young detective who was in his class, and they created a formula together which should be able to predict what will happen, but in order for the formula to continue and to actually work, the creator will have to die. And Namikoshi is basically the creator, so he was willing to put everything towards this. And the premise of 20 Faces is that he is basically someone that will take down criminals and all that, which is what the villains of this show, they're doing. They're taking down all the actual bad guys while becoming murderers themselves. And by the end of the show, we see that because of his theory and the way that he wanted to present this, and basically almost giving himself up, his own identity, he caused the world to change in kind of like a bad way, where there are more murderers and people committing suicide to go through with this plan and to make sure that it succeeds. And he has no regret towards it. He wants to see it go out and actually happen, And by the end of the show, there are riots everywhere. People are committing suicide for this plan to work. And it amazed me because basically his own theory created chaos. And he was happy about that. And not like in a maniacal laughter thing where he's taking over the world. He wants to change the world for the better. And in order to do that, he basically sacrificed himself and basically almost sacrificing other people for this to work. And the only person that really understands is one of the high schoolers who's willing to go through this, which I just found amazing, and the way that everything wrapped up was great. I just feel sorry for every character in this show who was basically warped by the theory. So hopefully that kind of gets through why he's a villain, but I think he's more like an anti-hero. Anyway, number 10, Kenshiro Yama from Makaku City Actors. Now, like Namikoshi, I feel like he isn't really all that villainous, but of course what he did through the show and the series is very villainous things, and I will explain in a minute after I explain the show. So, Makaku City Actors is a show that is based off the Kagero Days series, or the Kagero Days series, and they're, if you don't know what they are, they started off as Vocaloid videos, but they're under the group Kagero Days. And Miku and Aya, they sing their songs, and all the songs connect and tell a whole story about 9 characters. And each of the nine characters all have a special ability in their eyes. And they are able to get the ability if they have a close encounter with death, I believe. And also through the series, there have been people who have lost their lives to the heat haze, which is where the characters get their powers. And each character has a different ability. And they kind of formed a group where it's kind of like a club where all these teens and characters they have the ability with the eyes, so they all go there, and they are in the clubhouse, and it kind of makes me feel like they don't matter to the world anymore, so they're going to matter to them. And they stick together, but throughout the show, we see that the plot gets darker as we realize we are told exactly what happened to the main character's friend and love interest who committed suicide, I think, a year before the actual thing starts. A year or a few months. And we see how the characters change as they find out the truth behind everything. Now, by the way, I'm going to apologize right now because I'll probably just be starting a lot of sentences off with now because I just don't know how to continue. Anyway, with Tateyama, he is a professor or a teacher at the high school where some of the students went, or some of the characters went, and his daughter was the one that committed suicide. The unfortunate thing was that, if I remember correctly, because this show is actually kind of hard to understand, because you have the anime, which is like kind of straightforward, and they're like, okay, here, but you have to rewatch it to actually really understand. It's one of those shows where you watch it once, then you have to watch it again to understand. But they also have a manga which really go into everything. So if you really want to know more about it after you see it, or go through the music videos, read it, because they'll tell you everything. If I remember correctly, he actually watched her do this. Watched her commit suicide. And it hit her foster siblings hard. And it kind of broke up the family. But before that, he is also a science professor, I believe. So he does experiments, and him and his wife were doing some experiments together, and they both were in an accident. He was saved and given a power, as you can see on the right with his red eyes, while his wife passed away. The power that he got had also a serpent in it, and the serpent kind of took over him with his own desires to see his wife again. So the snake agreed that he would help him, but basically doing it in his own way, which is where the evil part comes in, because he basically is sacrificing everyone so that he can see his wife again. And that is all he wants to do. And he goes to the extent of murdering his students and experimenting on them to see if he could get back and revive his wife, if I'm correct. And don't worry, the characters, the students do come back, but they're completely different, and you'll understand that. But he basically, because of the power that he has, he basically turned evil to get his wife back and to fulfill his own desires. But it's not because of him. Him on his own, he's a fun-loving character who is willing to help out his students and all that. And of course he cared about his family, but he was so lost in his own desires that he let the snake take over. And that ruined him. And I knew that he wasn't, to some people he wouldn't be considered a villain because of that. But to me, of course, because you're putting everything else aside and sacrificing people for your own desires, even though it's not you. He's still the villain of the show, in my opinion. Number 9. Minerva Orland from Fairy Tail 2014. Before I continue, I do want to make a note saying that I may have to split this up into 2 videos again, even though I do not want to. But we'll see how far we get to. Anyway, with Minerva, she comes into the series during the Grand Magic Games. And we have two images, and so we're just gonna focus one at a time, because this character starts in that arc, and has been in almost everyone since then. But she is by far one of the evilest characters of the show, because she was a part of a guild called Sabretooth, which her father was the guild master, and she took on his own kind of beliefs of, we need to be the strongest. We're not the strongest, you don't care. And we don't need people like you there. And she wants to be the strongest person. She wants all the power. So when it comes down to fighting up against the other characters, she will do anything to make sure that she wins. She wants everything. She wants to succeed. And she is willing to sacrifice her own guild mates by kicking them to the curb and putting them through utter pain to make sure to get through their own heads that we need to win. Winning is everything. And as a result, in that, she lost. And she left her guild and went over to another guild, which is a dark one. Tried to do the exact same thing again. Failed. After that, she becomes a demon to go with all the other demons that they're fighting up against. She is stronger than ever, and of course, at the same time, power is everything. And she's willing to sacrifice everything so that she will win against her greatest enemy, which is the one that actually stopped her twice. So even as a human or a demon, she is willing to sacrifice everything to make sure that she wins. Even if it's her human form, she doesn't care. Her guildmates, her human side, anything she is willing to sacrifice. But in the end, she does see the error in her ways and goes back to the good side and goes back to her original guild, to her friends. And she is now a good guy, which I love that she's on this side, let me tell you. I think she's much better as a hero than a villain, but she still deserved a top spot on this list for just how long she was a villain and for what she sacrificed to try and get her way. But she is not one of my favorite characters of the show. She was kinda in your face all the time. Number 7, Beatrice. Beatrice. From Yumi Neko no Nakukoro ni. The immortal witch that she will trick you, she will make you believe things that aren't true, she will make you turn on other people. This woman wants to play with everything and make sure that her end of the bargain is there. Wanting to torture everyone while also trying to get her own way. This immortal witch had a deal with the Big Ming family, and when the deal was up, she wanted to collect her own payment for all the things that she has done, and through that would be the lives of the other people. I would actually put the grandfather of the show on the list because he sacrificed his entire family so that he would be safe from this woman. But in the end, I had to go with her. She has her own army, her own group of witches, and she tricks the main character every time and all the other characters into thinking that a good situation was going to come when all there is death. And I love her for that. Sorry, there wasn't really much to say about this character But trust me, if you see the show, she's amazing. Oh god. Akira Minosuji. Sorry about that. Wamushi Pedal. I have a huge issue with this one. And it's not that, oh, I didn't think he should be here, but I put him here anyway. It is what he does. Because I used to play sports. I am a sports person. And I take some things seriously. What he does is cheat his way through sports. And I hate that. And he's also a creepy motherfucker, if you cannot tell. But to get his own success, he is willing to trick other people into thinking things that are not true. Granted that his own life was kind of the same way, where he was tricked. Not really tricked, but something happened to him in his childhood that he now kind of uses towards other people, and it will bring down everyone. His intimidation is there too, and he's like a slimy lizard that you can't get away, and he's also willing to sacrifice his own bicycle team so that he will come on top, including making sure that the captain knows that he's the actual captain, while also trying to intimidate the other characters. So, of course, he's so high on the list because of the fact that he cheats on the sports, but also his intimidation, and he scares the fuck out of me. He's creepy, and if you see any of the GIFs for this character, creepy as hell. I think I will probably stop the video now, so that we can just probably do like 2 half-hour videos and get through the other half. So, to see the continuation, just click on the next video and you'll see the end of the list. Bye.